Hi guys, welcome to Facebook Live. I'm Sara Ellis here with Jesse James Beads. I have a really cool, easy bracelet project for you guys today, and we are going to be using some more of that suede lace that we used last week. I'm just really hooked on that. Love that stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. We are going to make a bracelet using the Cotton Candy Jasper Skies Dakota Stone Bead Strand. That's a mouthful. That's a lot. But that's what we're going to be using today. It is so pretty. So pretty. If you guys have not had the opportunity to pick up those bead strands, you need to do that now because I'm sure they are not going to last long. They are so pretty. You can get them individually, and you can also get them in a bundle that's the, what is the name of that? Colors of the Earth bundle. And there's 3 strands. I'm going to show you all 3 of those strands just so that you can see. We've already used the perfectly jaded strand. We used that last week in the necklace that we did. So there's one more strand left. That's the Madagascar creamsicle strand, and oh my gosh, it's so pretty. It's probably my favorite. I don't know, it's kind of a toss-up between that one and this one because this one is really beautiful. So I think that's it. I usually have some sort of information to give you guys. I don't have anything extra for today. So let's get started with the project. Guys, give me just a second. I'm going to pull this up on the computer as well so that I can see if there are any questions. There we go. Hold on. Okay. All right. So these are the 3 strands that I was talking about in the bundle. That is the Colors of the Earth bundle. And oh my gosh, you guys, these are so pretty. This is the strand that we're going to use today. This is the strand we're going to use next week, and this is the perfectly jaded that we used last week. I'm going to move these 2 that we're not using out of the way, but just know that this guy right here is coming up. So pretty. Love that. So this is the strand that we're using. This is Cotton Candy Jasper Skies. Absolutely love this. It's kind of a peachy pink with this beautiful sky blue color. It is Imperial Jasper. You're getting some 10mm stones, which I love, the great big ones, these 10mm. And then you're also getting them in some rondelles as well, which is a really cool way to mix everything up. Love it. Okay, so today's bracelet, we're going to utilize all of this, the entire strand. We're not going to have anything left over. And we're going to use a little bit of the suede lace. Let me go ahead and tell you all of the things we're going to be using. We've got about a 10-inch strand of suede lace. I'm using brown. You can use any color that you want to. I think a pink or a blue strand or even a nice gray color would look great with this bracelet as well. But we're going to use this in conjunction with a button. And I'm using a metal shank button for this. So we're not going to use a traditional clasp per se. I really enjoy using this kind of clasp because for me, it's really easy to get on and off without any help. So that's what we're going to do. This is, I guess I already told you, this is a 10-inch strand, but we also need a 10-inch strand of some bead stringing wire. I'm using, let's see, this is 49 strand silver color, and I'm using 0.38mm bead stringing wire. You can use whatever you've got on hand. The 0.38, I really like it. I use it for just about everything. It's a nice, good, sturdy diameter, but it's not overly bulky. You can still get a size 1 crimp bead on that. And speaking of which, we're going to need 2 crimp beads. We're also going to need a 25mm quick link, just like we used last week. So if you happen to pick up quick links, you've probably got a couple of these laying around. We're going to use these. You can use anything that you've got in your stash. It doesn't have to be a quick link, but you can definitely get these on the Jesse James website. You're going to need 2 head pins, maybe 3, maybe 4, whatever you decide. I'm just going to use 2 to make 2 cute little dangles at the end that we're going to hang off of this quick link. And last but not least, I'm using 2 wire guardians. This is completely optional. You don't have to use wire guardians if you don't want to. In fact, I'm going to do a wire guardian on one end and then not a wire guardian on the other end, just to kind of show you so that those of you who don't use wire guardians, you don't feel like, oh, she didn't tell us how to do it without. Okay, so again, this is totally optional. Let's see. what you making? I'm making a bracelet. I wish I had it for you already done. Sometimes I have the piece already ready to go, but I had taken this one apart because I actually restrand my strands over and over again so that you guys can see them. I know that's kind of crazy, but I just like to be able to show you the full strand. So I took the bracelet apart and put the strand back together. So we're starting over again from scratch. And this is just a really cool, simple bracelet. Simple stringing, but we also have the addition of the button clasp instead of just a regular clasp, which I think is kind of cool. Just a neat way to mix things up a little bit. So for tools, you're just going to need your regular tools. You're going to need a cutter tool, chain nose, round nose pliers, and a crimper tool of some variety, just a standard, because we're only using the size 1 crimp beads. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this strand apart. I gotta tell you, every time I cut a strand of these beads apart, I feel a little sad because they are always so beautiful just the way that they are. And I don't know, it just gives me a little bit of anxiety to have to cut a strand apart because I'm like, oh, will I ever be able to put it back together as beautifully as it looks when you first get it? But the truth is that any combination of this looks amazing. That's what is so great about Jesse James beads. They really know what they're doing when they put together a strand. Okay, so we're taking all these guys off. Now we're going to use all of these except for a select few. I'm going to go ahead and take the ones out that I'm going to save for the end. So I'm going to take out one of these 10mm guys, which you guys cannot see. There we go. All right, I'm taking out one of the 10mm guys and 2 of the bead caps, and one of the 10mm in the blue, and this little guy, this little donut, and the silver bead at the end. I'm going to sit these to the side. We're going to use those at the very, very end just to make some dangles. And again, you can mix this up however you want to. You don't have to pick the exact same beads that I chose. All right, so we're going to start with our bead stringing wire to make our bracelet. And just like I said, I'm going to do one end with a wire guardian and one without. So it's totally up to you whether you do it or not. However, I'm just doing that for the sake of showing you. I would suggest doing one or the other and not like I'm doing. I'm just doing it to show you either way, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to thread on my number 1 crimp bead onto my bead stringing wire, just like so. And let's do the wire guardian on this end, okay? Because this is going to go on our button shank here. And I'm going to thread on the wire guardian, and I'm going to thread the wire back through. Now before I thread back through the crimp bead, okay, so nothing is attached yet, I'm going to go ahead and thread on my button. And for those of you who don't use wire guardians, or you've never used them and you wonder what is the reason behind the wire guardian, it is really just an extra safety precaution so that you are creating less abrasion between your bead stringing wire and your metal component, whatever it may be, whether it's a button or a jump ring or what have you. And again, not completely necessary. It's just one of those things. Some people use them, some people don't. It's up to you, okay? So I've thread my wire through my crimp bead right there, and now I'm going to come in with my crimper tool, and I'm placing that right in that back notch, the one that's closest to my hand, okay? And I'm just going to squeeze that gently, making sure that those wires are not crossed on the inside of that crimp bead, okay? You want to be sure that when you squeeze down, it's separating those 2 wires from each other, because that's also another point of abrasion, and you don't want those crisscrossed inside there. You want as little abrasion as possible, okay? And now I'm going to turn that over and put that in the first notch of my crimper tool and give it a nice little squeeze just to kind of make that crimp bead more compact. Okay, if you've crimped properly, you don't need this tail. You can go ahead and cut that off right at the crimp bead and just get rid of that altogether. When I first started making jewelry, I would leave that tail and I would make it really long and I would thread it back through some beads. I do not do that anymore. You don't have to do that. Like I said, if you've crimped properly, it's completely unnecessary. Also at this point, a lot of people will use a crimp bead cover. That is totally up to you as well. It really just kind of depends on your design. I know a lot of people say that if you cover it with a crimp bead cover, that it looks more professional, but you also have to consider that you are adding, number one, a little bit more abrasion here, but you're also adding some extra metal. So it may or may not be part of what you want for your design. A lot of times I don't like that extra metal, so I just leave it. That crimp bead is a little teeny tiny guy. I don't like to draw a whole lot more attention to him than I have to. Okay, so this is ready to go. I'm ready to string on my beads, and I have this whole little bit of strand here left. We're gonna use every single bit of this, and I am just gonna string it on here just the way that it is, laying on my bead mat. It's pretty close to the way that it was on the strand, with the exception of those beads that we took out. So this is just easy stringing, just threading all those guys on there. I love the bead caps. Those are so pretty. I love that Jesse James Beads always adds the extra metal beads in there, and it's not just a straight strand of beads. That's one of my very favorite things about Jesse James Beads, among other things, but I always love that they add those. Okay, let's see. Pull this down here so you guys can see. Just stringing along, adding those beads that we didn't take out. Still leaves a nice strand, and this makes a short strand. So obviously there's not enough here unless you have a teeny tiny wrist to make a bracelet all on its own. But with the addition of the suede lace that we're going to use, gives you the opportunity to really kind of adjust the length of this. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a second, so you will understand what I mean. All right, so I've got all the beads on the strand ready to go. Okay, and now I am going to, let's see, I cannot remember what I did at this point. I'm going to, first I'm going to check and see what's going on here. Wire string. This is bead stringing wire. This is 49 strand, silver color, and I'm using 0.38 millimeter bead stringing wire for this. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to do this side without the wire guardian. Okay, I'm going to use the quick link though, and get out one of my, and that was a 10-inch strand of this bead stringing wire too, by the way, and that's actually going to be a little bit much. So you could probably get away with probably 7 inches of this, maybe even 6 inches. Hi, Sharon. All right, so instead of going through a wire guardian or any of that, I'm just going to thread my crimp bead on, and now I've thread on this huge 25 millimeter, it looks funny all by itself, on this wire. But that's okay, because we're gonna go right back through this crimp bead and pull so that this quick link, rather, is our connection. All right, so I've got that thread back through, and I'm just gonna pull tight. You don't wanna pull super, super tight. Obviously you wanna leave some wiggle room, but I do need to pull tight to pull all of this down, okay? Now, again, I wanna be sure that I've got a little bit of wiggle room as far as my beads, because if you do this too tight, then they're too stiff and they won't bend and make a pretty drape for your bracelet. Okay, so you wanna be sure that you haven't got those too stiff. All right, now I'm going to come in again with my crimper tool, and this is where the bead stringing wire always is the most fickle, because it naturally wants to crisscross over itself inside that crimp bead. So you have to really give it a good look and kind of figure out where exactly those wires, which one is which on this side, and kind of twist them around until you get them going the correct direction before you crimp, just to be sure that they're not crossing over each other. This one's actually behaving. I'm really surprised. All right, so I'm coming in with my crimper tool. Sharon says, I'm glad you are feeling better. Thank you. I was so sick last week. I don't even know how I made it through last week's video. I had a fever. It was all types of bad. All right, but I'm feeling much better. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm still a little congested. I'm sure you can hear it. But all right, so I just crimped that just like I did the other crimp bead at the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and cut off this tail. And look, you can see 10 inches was way, way, way too much of the bead stringing wire. Okay, go ahead and trim that off. All right, so this part is ready to go. Now we're ready to make the connection with our suede lace. And this is super, super simple. We're gonna take this 10-inch section and we're going to loop it through our quick link, okay? And at this point, all you're gonna do is you're just gonna make an overhanded knot. And I'm kind of a stickler for how pretty my knots look, so I always tend to adjust as I go, making that knot look as pretty as possible and as close as possible too. You don't have to have a large loop here, okay? I like to keep that knot pretty close to the surface of that quick link. Okay, so I'm gonna pull that tight. And just like last week, if you guys were watching the necklace where we used some of this suede lace, you can add a dab of glue. I always feel like one of the Flintstones when I say dab of glue. I know that's terrible, right? Add a dab of glue. We're gonna add a dab of glue if this is for sale. My husband and my daughter think that I'm crazy. Okay, anyway, we're gonna add a dab of glue. Oh my goodness. Here and on the other side as well, if you want to. You absolutely don't have to, but when I am selling my jewelry pieces, I love to add a little bit of glue there just for some added security. Okay, so there's the first knot. Now we're gonna make a space here before we tie another knot, and you want to be sure that your space is large enough to accommodate your button, okay? Because your button is actually going to slide between those two pieces of the suede, and that's how your bracelet is going to be secured. Okay, so you want to be sure that you leave enough room for that. But you don't want it to be so big that your button has the opportunity to slip out. So I like to get it as close to the size of my button as possible and just hold on with my finger. That's about right. Okay, so I have plenty of room, but it's not too much. So I'm holding here. I'm going to go ahead and do another overhanded knot. And as I was saying earlier, this gives you the opportunity to adjust the size of your bracelet as well. If you are selling your pieces, I love to have an additional, that one wasn't perfect, but it's pretty close. I like to add an additional one of these loops here on this end so that it gives you the opportunity to wear this at two different sizes. So on this first loop, that's going to give you a pretty standard, about a 7 to a 7.5 inch bracelet. But with the addition of another one of these loops here, meaning that you can thread your button through right here or right here, you're going to obviously add to the length of your bracelet here. So your customers, you don't have to worry that you've got a customer that's wrist is too big or too small. This is going to accommodate a couple of different sizes. Okay, and I accidentally, well, my cord is a little short, but that's all right. I'm going to make it do. I just have to wiggle it around. So maybe a 10-inch piece of this might be a little bit better. I kind of underestimated here just to make the loop. Give me just a second to get that through there. I'm actually going to pull my pliers in here. Keep my big fingers out of the way. Okay, so yeah, I didn't leave enough room. Well, poo. Oh no, if I slide it down just a little bit. There we go. We had plenty of room. I just needed to stretch it out a little bit. Okay, so now I have the option for two different sizes. The button can go through here or the button can go through here if you have a little bit larger of a wrist. Okay, so, and I also just kind of like the way that the suede lace looks. So having that extra length, I think, just kind of adds more character to the bracelet as it is. All right, so you could obviously leave your bracelet like this and be done, but I like to be extra, and so we are going to make some little dangles to hang off of the quick link here. Are you using scrap leather? I am not using scrap leather. This is actually from Beadalon. This was a pack, and you can get this on the Jesse James website. Well, I think the one that is on the Jesse James website is in a roll. I'm not certain. I think that it's on a spool, but it's the same thing. It's just suede lace. It's super, super soft. I absolutely love it. And it smells really good too. If you're into smelling your leather cord, I'm totally a weirdo like that. Smells really good, but it's really soft and supple, which I love. But yeah, you could use a scrap here because you're only using about 10 to 12 inches of this. So you certainly don't have to buy a whole big thing of leather unless you're going to use it for other things. Okay. So now I'm going to add some little dangles, and this is going to be nothing special here, just an extra little something. I'm using a head pin, and I've thread on one of those bead caps, and now I'm going to thread on one of these gorgeous 10mm beads, which, oh my gosh, they are so pretty. I'm telling you. All right, so there's that. And yeah, that's all I'm going to add to this one. I'm going to make a wrapped loop, and I'm going to make it directly on the quick link so that there is no way that this guy is going to come off. I don't have to worry that it's going to get hung on my clothing or anything else. It's not going to pull off. So to do that, I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers, grabbing right over the top of the bead, and I'm going to bend 90 degrees. Okay, and taking those away, I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. Now, again, I've told you guys previously that I like to use my chain nose pliers to make that bend because I'm kind of a stickler for having a really sharp bend. You don't have to use your chain nose pliers. You can certainly grab that wire with your round nose pliers and just use one tool, all in one. I'm just kind of a weirdo like that. I like to use use two pairs of pliers for the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to pull this back kind of towards the middle because I want this to be a larger loop. I normally make my loops up here. I make little teeny tiny ones, but this one's going to be a mid-sized loop. Grabbing that wire between the barrel of the pliers, and I'm going up and over. Just like so. I'm going to adjust my grip just a little bit to go ahead and finish that loop. Now you can see I've got some room here because we're going to do that wrap, but before we do that, we're going to go ahead and thread this on and capture that quick link in our loop. Okay, now I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers. I've got two pairs here. I'm going to hold with one hand, and then I'm going to come in with my other pair of chain nose pliers to grab a hold of that wire to make my wraps. And it looks like I've got enough room to make about 3 good wraps here. Okay, so that's ready to go. I'm going to come in with my cutter tool and trim that off. And then I'm going to clean that up just a little bit with my chain nose pliers because I don't want that end sticking out. Okay, so now we have one dangle here, really, really beautiful. And it's, again, because it's a wrapped loop that is directly attached to that quick link, it's not going anywhere. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with one more little set of beads here. So I've got my head pin and one of these blue 10mm Jasper pieces, and let's see, this donut guy and this silver bead that was at the very end of our strand. Okay, just to kind of hold everything together because this guy has got a really large hole. So I'm going to add this top bead just to kind of keep everything secure. Okay, so whoops, sorry, here we go. I'm going to do the exact same thing, coming in with my chain nose pliers, bending 90 degrees, coming in with my round nose pliers, back here towards the back, up and over, adjusting my grip just a little bit, and I'm going to attach this to my quick link. Debbie says she has a container of scrap pieces of leather. I do too, and you're right. This would be the perfect way to use those up for sure. All right, so I'm just holding on to that loop, and if I can keep up with my pliers here, I'm going to make 3 good wraps. Excuse me. You guys, Sarah is in New Orleans right now. How jealous are you? I am so jealous. She has the most wonderful job to get to travel to so many places. I know yesterday morning she was in I think it was yesterday morning, she was in a coffee shop in the French Quarter. It's like, oh my gosh, what a great way to spend your morning. All right, so I'm going to trim that off. And I'm just going to clean that up just a little bit. And that's it. You've got a cute little bracelet with a button clasp that you can wear all summer long. I love the button because, like I said, it's so much easier to maneuver a button through two pieces of leather than it is to try to work with like a lobster clasp all by yourself. So I don't have to ask for anybody's help when I'm putting a bracelet on like this, which I think is great. And of course, you've got the opportunity to make it two different sizes with just one piece of leather, which is cool too. I think it's very beachy looking, very cool, awesome for spring and summer. So that's that. And I'm gonna come on up here and say goodbye to everybody. I hope you guys have liked this project. I thought it was fun in a really easy way. Hello. An easy way to show off those bead strands. A lot of times, like I said, I hate to cut them apart because they look so beautiful strung the way that Jesse James Bead strings them. And this was a cool way to kind of just show off the way that they were already strung, which I love to do. So again, easy piece of jewelry to make. A really cool one that you could put with all of those Dakota Stones. Okay, just imagine for a second that you got all of the Dakota Stone strands. You could fill up a booth, or one area of a booth, with the bracelets that are in all of those Dakota Stones strands. They would be absolutely beautiful. Or you could just fill up your wrist with them, which is probably what I'm gonna do because they're so beautiful. So that's it for me this week, you guys. I hope you have enjoyed today's project. If you recreate this project with a strand of your own, post it on Facebook because we love to see that. And I will see you guys next week, same time, same place. Bye, guys.